those kind of successes early on are very important, and we play a tough early schedule as always. But at the same time, we got to be able to sustain it, and be able to finish those games out. And I've said it from the podium, and those 8 games that were decided in the fourth quarter, we got to, we won those games in 19 and 20. We did, and so because we always had a lot of close games here, and so we got to find a way to win them, in 23, And so how do you do that? Well, staying healthy is part of that. Being better up front, run the football better. Have to take pressure off your defense, takes pressure off your throw game when you get in less third and longs. That's a big part of this, and that's a big part of what we want to be able to do, and so we emphasize that, and we got to live that out. We have to. And so, but this team, even though there's new faces, and I've said it several times today, I really, really am excited about the guys we have. We just got to come together, and obviously, so we spent a lot of time together so far, but now as a in-fall camp, which is you feel like you're together from daylight till dark, during the camp mode for those 3 weeks. And so that's going to be an important part of this team, but being able to build, like you talked about, to have the ability to finish out those early games, get some great momentum at the start of the season, and then carry it on to the rest and then finish.
When you talk about...
Sorry, to follow up on getting prepared and the mindset of when you had Matt Mayberry come in and talk to the team, can you talk about what his message was to the team and how important that, he calls them episms, how important that epism is to the mental toughness of this program?
Well, I think that it was just great to hear him. We had not met in person till he came. We had talked on the phone several times and exchanged some text messages, and really had a chance to connect with him. And I learned pretty quickly that we had a very aligned thought process of how you do things and how you build things. And he's obviously in the business world and is a motivational speaker in that world, and culture developer and all those different things. And so written a couple books, and I just thought our players needed to hear. Even his own personal story was powerful for our guys, and why he came to Indiana. And he came here at a time when it was, not a lot of winning going on, and Coach Hepp convinced him to come, and he was one of the guys in his first class, and a chance to come in here, and obviously losing Coach Hepp, but he never forgot the very things that he taught him, and just about the never quit quote, the whole poem that he just recites from memory, which is not a short poem. It's just so much about the grit and toughness it takes to be great, and to be able to come to a place like Indiana to try to create a new future, to create new opportunities, and create new traditions, and create new things that they're known for, even maybe it hasn't been the case in the past. That's why he came there, and just hearing him talk about that, and just to be able to talk about setting the bar high and then jumping over the bar, was something he talked about that he learned from Coach Hepp, and how you set standards and expectations for yourself and for this program, and that's what we see us wanting to do. And so I had some really good times together before he talked and after he talked, and we're going to stay in close contact as well. So I just want to be able to bring guys that they can hear from, that have a great message, and just talk about taking ownership of your past, taking ownership of your present, and then taking ownership of your future, and how you have those daily habits that are going to be matching those goals and dreams you have for yourself and for this program. So I thought the guys, and they responded well. They loved having him, and he enjoyed being here, and we're going to try and get him back and be around our guys, bring him back for a game. And I know he's a really busy guy, like a lot of folks are, but having Matt here was really special.
How do you approach, you've talked since the spring about how you felt summer was going to be really important for that quarterback sort of job and the battle for that. You have a little bit of contact with those guys with sort of the OTA type stuff you can do, but there's a lot I know that kind of has to be player-led and player-organized. I guess, how do you approach thinking about that position? Do you try to put it out of your mind in the sense of not wanting to maybe overthink it at a time of year where you don't have eyes on these guys a lot? Do you go to them for feedback? Just how do you think about kind of a position battle like that in the summer months specifically?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because it is a unique time of the year, and now that the NCAA did give us the OTA time that we took away from the 8 hours, per the week to be with our guys, and we took full advantage of that. And when we did that, especially in the month of June, we did it for a couple of days in July where the coaches were with them when they were back together. And so, but during those times, they had to be no ball period, so we couldn't throw the ball, and so you don't get a chance to see that part of it. And so, but for me, it's more the leadership piece. How do they develop a relationship with their teammates over the summer? How are they doing a great job of growing in their leadership? Because there's a lot of things where we're not there, and just being able to get the feedback from the players. And so I individually met with every single one of our leadership council guys at the end of the summer. I've never done that before. And so I wanted to get their one-on-one thoughts about, their position group, their side of the football, and the whole team. And so for me, that was insightful about where those quarterbacks are, and just hearing from their teammates about. Because that, to me, you think about part of the variable in picking the starter is what do the other 10 guys think? You know, what do they believe about that guy? I think that's massive. I think that's such a huge part. Now it's hard to to quantify in some ways, but there's also a gut feel to that. But talking to those guys, hearing from them, okay, how have they done leading? How have they interacted? How have they done with the receivers? Because they got to get the receivers together, and they got to throw with them. They got to get the running backs together, they got the tight ends together. And so to me, that's really a chance for them. Without us being there, you get a chance to see who they really are as a leader. So I really put a lot of stock in that. And then, right now it's a matter of, okay, now we are going to be throwing the football. We're going to be able to, everything's going to be charged. So it's more specific to the documentation of things in the fall camp, and in the summertime it's a little more ambiguous maybe per se in terms of writing things down because you don't have the measurables to go after, but it does matter. And you can get a feel for how they're perceived by their teammates in a big way, I think, during the summer.
Do you plan on going live with them? You got two young guys.
Not live. I mean, we're not going to, no, not live to where they're going to get tackled. But we are going to do some things to try and be able to create for them to have to move around more and not make it to be where anybody's close to them. We're going to blow the whistle. We're going to do some things a little more aggressive than that, but they're not going to be tackled now.
Last year you didn't publicly name a starter before the season. Is that kind of the way you will approach it this year?
Yeah, I don't ever want to give our first opponent anything extra that they would be beneficial. Obviously, the players will know, and all that kind of procedure will be handled that way. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not going to give anything out before I need to.
If I can ask you to give something out before you need to. Last year with Dexter, we saw, particularly in that Purdue game before he got hurt, some extra kind of option concepts and things. Some of the stuff that you can run the ball, side to side out of the Coach Bell's system. Do you think those guys could do some of that too? Whether it's Brendan or Taven, some options, some quarterback design, quarterback run, not just he can tuck it and he can be dual threat. But
well, I think with Dexter, that definitely was what he did best.
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we got to make sure whoever we pick, we got to make sure we're doing a tremendous job for once that decision is made, and obviously within the system of what we have to be able to maximize their skill set, what they do best. And so to me, any time that person is a variable in the equation, that's a positive thing. So, but there's no question that really fit who Dexter was, and you saw the benefits of that, and you can see how valuable that was. And obviously, we expect Dexter to play. I mean, I think there's going to be a coming time, point in the season where he comes back. That's what I would expect. I mean, I don't know when it's going to be, but I do believe that too. So, but at the same time, wherever we pick, we're going to build it around their strengths and help them be the most successful possible.
Coach, I got my positive question for you. I always like to try to give you. You grew up in a household with your dad being a coach. You're a coach. What does that mean to you, knowing that your dad was a coach and you're getting to do a lot of things that he did and kind of living vicariously and maybe, doing some of the things he got to do?
It's pretty special, because when you see it as a young person and you grow up and you see the players, and I looked up to those guys. I mean, I thought those guys were my heroes, and I wanted to be like those guys. And I used to think they were so big, and then when you grow up and then you meet them later and they come back and I'm taller than they are, some of them. But you just live that way. And so to be in this role is pretty awesome. And then my own son is now one of our GAs, and so he's going to be, a coach. And I just think that anytime you can pass on a legacy of impact, a legacy of being able to do the very thing that your own dad did, and how much I loved it. I loved going to, I couldn't wait as a elementary kid to get picked up by my dad and go ride the team bus to the games and ride on the bus back. And I look forward to it every single week and loved going to practice when I could. And, fall camp was big for me because that's before school started. So I was always there. And I just, I used to sit in on the coaches' meetings when I was a kid with my dad. And I loved it. And so to do the very thing that he's doing, and it's pretty cool for him to come back. And he's 85 now, and his health has been hard. But at the same time, we're blessed to have him still with us and be able to share in this time together, and then also pass these things on to his grandson and our son. It's pretty cool.
You were mentioning in your previous statements about how it's an exciting opportunity when you're going to be divisionless just because of that equitable scheduling. How much of a difference do you think it makes when you don't necessarily have what could be 3 top 5 teams in the country every year on your schedule?
What do you think? No, it's going to be different. I mean, then obviously it's going to rotate, and I tell you what, you had USC, and UCLA, and USC, and you look to see the way that they have recruited the last several years. I mean, they're right there with the top 5 teams in the country. So it's the conference is deep. There's no doubt, and everybody you play is going to be good. And so, but Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan, just historically speaking, I mean, they've been 3 of the top 10 programs in the nation for a long, long time. So they're hard to beat. And when they played the teams from the West Division, you can just look the record up yourself. I won't give it to you. I know exactly what it is. You can figure it out. But bottom line is that they're tough to beat. And so a lot of respect for them. And bottom line though is I do think it's a good thing for the whole conference to have everybody playing each other in a more equitable way. I think it's good for everybody. And so, but bottom line is that we're gonna play whoever they put on our schedule. And we know what the 24 and the 25 schedule is right now. It'll probably change from 26 to 27, I'm sure, for what might be slated at this point. But that's what they put out. And so it's an exciting time to be part of this conference. And when you think you're coast to coast now, which we are, it changes recruiting. And I'm excited. I've never played UCLA or USC in a game, and other than the bowl game out there, my first game as head coach, I've not played in the state of California before, outside of that. So just a new time, new era, and it's going to be a lot of travel, a little different. We got to figure out those cross-country flights and everything for mid-year games, but at the same time, I think that anytime you can add really, really quality programs to your conference, that's nothing but a great thing.
Caleb talked about a desire to maybe play the slot a little bit outside receiver packages. In what areas have you seen him kind of grow spring camp and then throughout the summer?
Yeah, he's worked extremely hard at just ball skills, catching the balls and being able to be extremely dependable in that area, and for a guy that's built the way he is, and he doesn't have long features, so but he's as hard a worker as I've ever been around. That kid is out there every possible moment, catching kicks and punts and just catching any ball he can. As a receiver, as out of the backfield, as a running back, and he's a running back first, but at the same time we've got a very versatile guy that can do multiple things, and so it's about getting your best playmakers to football. And he's that guy. He's one of those guys for sure. We have several guys that we put in that category, and so I'm proud of him. He had a great freshman year, but he didn't do anything but just work even harder. That really excites me.
You talked about how you watch similar players in terms of size and stature, D'Anthony Thomas, Tavon Austin, Deuce Vaughn, who was at Penn State last year. What value do you think comes to him watching smaller players like that from a coach's perspective?
Well, I think it's good. I think that we always challenge our guys that who you emulate your game after, and obviously he's built a lot like those guys. And there's certain things that body type can do well, and there's things that they may be challenged by. So I don't think there's any problem with looking at those guys and saying, hey, I want to be a guy like that. I want to be a guy that can do those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, if you're that kind of size, you got to be really, really special in space, and you got to be able to avoid those big collisions. And that's really what he has the ability to do. And so, but at the same time, he's got to take the next step as a player. I think he's worked really hard to get that, but he's got to earn it on game day.
You mentioned last week about a touch count for him. Do you put a number on it internally, like how many times you want to?
Oh yeah, we do. We've already done that, and so we're not going to.
I'm not going to reveal, but I'm
no,
just curious,
but we do.
How do you try to generate that? Just kind of
well, to me, it's going to be total touches. That includes special teams and everything, because every time a guy touches the football, then obviously he has a chance to make a play. Like I said, we got several guys that we felt we got to get these guys to football. So, but because of his versatility at his position, as well as being able to get the ball to him as a receiver, as a running back, and in the return game, that to me is really, really important. And so I think he's just a guy that we know for sure at the end of the day, we got to make sure he touches the ball a certain number of times.
Do you think he's going to be a really valuable decoy because of that too? Like everybody knows you want to get him the ball, a lot of eyes on him.
I think, it's like anything else. So like if you want to be a really elite pass rusher, it really helps you if you got another guy on the other side that they got to deal with. If they just got to focus on you, then it's it becomes a little simpler, right? But now they start focusing on you, and that's going to create one-on-ones with other talented players that are around him. So everybody's going to benefit from that.
Right.
And the bottom line is that he's had to enhance his skill set to be able to, for us to have more opportunities to get the football. And so that's been the focus this offseason, is how can we continue to develop his skills to where he is a true threat in the throw game, in the run game, and also be able to stay on the field to, hey, they have to protect the quarterback in pass protections, which is something that was hard for him a year ago. And then to also be able to expand his role in the return game, So to me, that's on him, and that's the thing. And I sat down with him, mapped out this is what we want you to work on this whole offseason, and that's what he's been doing.
Tom, you mentioned when you were doing the earlier press conference, and it was in context of not calling defensive plays, how other things take you away from things like that. Some of the CEO parts of being a football coach. I know football coaches aren't having another coach on the field. How hard is it these days, especially with the changes that have come in the last couple of years, to deal with the things that take you away from it?
Yeah, I think that's always the catch-22 of being the head coach over being a coordinator. The thing that most of us, we got into this game for two reasons. At least I look at it this way. Like, I got in this game because, man, I want to impact young men's lives, and I love coaching ball. I really enjoy the process of getting ready for an opponent. I love studying the film. That doesn't tire me. It doesn't wear me. I mean, I enjoy it. It takes a lot of hours, but I enjoy that. So that's the part I miss, when I don't call. But at the same time, I also believe that, as a head coach, you have a tremendous opportunity for impact on a lot of people's lives. And so I've put a lot of value into that. So that, to me, is why I feel like that I still feel energized, because I'm only doing one of the two things that really drove me into this profession. But I'm also really in a maximum amount of position to impact, not just players, but coaches and their families. And so I feel like that still gives me tremendous purpose. And I'm also very involved defensively, even though I'm not calling it. But I would really, if I didn't get a chance to be part of that at all, schematically, that would be kind of hard, So, but that's the part I got to. So right now, the way it works is I need to be able to walk out of that defensive room or that offensive room when I'm with the men's staff and deal with the administrative issue, or you talk about being the CEO, which we basically are of our organization. So I think you got to balance that, but it's also part of you got a great opportunity to impact a lot of people when you're in the head coach role.
Talking about the schedule a little bit. It's a little weird that everything's coming in 2024, the new teams in the conference, the new schedule, but we still have one more season before all that happens. But there's going to need to be changes with your program, how you prepare for things and all of that. How do you deal with this season knowing the changes are coming next year?
Well, I mean, you compartmentalize. I mean, we know what's coming next, but we've not really spent any time dealing with that right now, So we got, I have a systematic way of trying to approach that, in regards to our DFO and how we're planning ahead with him. But from a football perspective, we're not really talking about anything other than, what's ahead of us in week one, So, but I'm also not a tunnel vision. I realize I can't have just tunnel vision on things. I have to be able to have a big picture view of where we're going. And so I just think it's an exciting time. You thought about and you also throw in the 12-team playoff. That's another new part of the 24 season. So definitely exciting things ahead for sure for college football and for the Big Ten. But right now the main focus is, and the one focus is, getting our team ready for fall camp and ready for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Tom, from your game against Ohio State last year, what do you remember about the challenges with covering somebody like Marvin Harrison and just the challenges with his grade? Yeah,
he's special, and they have a special quarterback and special receivers, and not just him. You talk about having multiple guys you got to deal with, and so, and a massive offensive line, So I just think that they create a lot of issues, and so it's hard to focus in on just one guy without question. Now they will have a couple new tackles and a new quarterback as their starters, whoever that might be. And so you got to be able to adapt to figure out who that's going to look and how that's going to affect their offense and how their offense will look. But regardless, it's going to be a very talented player playing any of those three spots. So, but and Harrison's one of those guys where, I mean, it's like anybody else. You got to be able to decide, how do you handle that guy? Is it a group effort? And if you put too much emphasis on him, is it going to hurt your other players? Obviously it will. So we got to do a great job of not allowing a player like that to be able to take a game over and then end up beating you.
What stands out about him versus them? I mean, they've had a lot of good receivers.
Yeah, they have.
What stands out about him?
Well, his size and speed. And I'm telling you, his ball skills are ridiculous. I mean, that guy just doesn't drop balls, and makes some unbelievable catches. So that makes for, when you got length and you got speed and you got phenomenal ball skills, that makes for a very tough matchup. It's hard to say, well, what do you take away from the guy? How can you, we do have some longer corners and some bigger DBs, which will help, in that regard. But at the same time, how much do you want to put a guy one-on-one with him? That's a tough matchup for anybody to be able to do. But you know what? We got some guys that are going to have to rise up, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to cover guys in certain situations. I'm not saying you're going to play man on him the whole time, but he's going to have that. And that's why, that's what he's working for, and that's what we're working for. So, end of the day, you got a really, really talented football team that's got probably, one of the best, if not the best, receiver I've ever gone against.
Coach, I'm from the Grand Rapids area, and you recently offered Robbie Kavaleski out of East Grand Rapids a walk-on opportunity. What stood out to you about him, and why give him this walk-on opportunity?
You know, I tell you what, he's passionate about Indiana, and he really wanted to be a part of our program. And obviously, he's a guy that has position flexibility. He can play offensive line, he can play tight end. And just want guys that are passionate about coming to Indiana and helping this program improve in any way possible. And when we have a guy as a walk-on, I want guys that are here for all the right reasons. Guys that are going to be going to class and they're going to do an excellent job in that classroom, represents a first-class way, and they're going to do everything right off the field, on the field, in the workouts. And he just comes across as a guy to me who's going to just be a tremendously hard worker, that I'm not going to have to worry about anything that he's doing or not doing. He's going to be where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. And that's what you get when you get a guy that really cares about the opportunity he's been given, and he realizes it's pretty special.
Coach Allen, another recruiting question for you. As a guy that covers Fort Wayne area teams, what have you liked about just the caliber of talent that's come out of the area, just knowing you've brought in some Fort Wayne folks over the years as head coach?
Yeah, I tell you, it's been an increase, I would say, of guys that are being, recruited to and by the Power 5 schools in the country. And so, it's a really good pocket of football, and highly competitive conference. A lot of guys, very good coaches in that league, and very well prepared. So, anytime you get that many guys, and then you start growing and you start seeing more in the future. So I think it motivates other guys, to be able to, you take some of those guys that play multiple sports and they know, hey, I may love basketball, but man, I can go to football and be a guy that stands out, as a guy that has this type of athleticism, and so in the receiver position or DB position. So yeah, it's become, especially the last few years, a lot of guys up there, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come.
Going back to the quarterbacks, you mentioned just the importance of leadership just in the competition. How much of a challenge do you think that is for guys like Taven and Brendan, who this is their second year of college football? And are there any moments you can point to in the spring or summer where you kind of have seen those leadership traits come out in them?
Yeah, and I tell you, we've had a lot of one-on-one conversations about this very thing. I'm only a second-year college player, and how do I insert myself in this situation? So we talk it through. We explain, this is what this should look like, and how do you get to that point? And so at the core of that is relationship building. When you build a relationship with your teammates, you earn the right to speak into their life. And if you don't, and you try to speak into their life in a critical moment of a heated workout or whatever, it doesn't usually end very well. So building those has been a real big part of this off season, and I think they both have tremendous ability in those areas. And we did some leadership training with our whole team the last couple of days, and I thought those two guys rose throughout. We did 2 days of it, and I thought they rose and they grew throughout that whole process. So to me, it's intentional for us, building team, building bonds, building our guys, in those two positions. Here's what I look at it. I want, in a perfect scenario, you want your linebackers to be your best leaders of your defense, and you want your quarterbacks to be your top leaders on your offense, because those two positions run that side of the ball. And eventually, whoever's going to run the team is going to come out of one of those two rooms. In my opinion, that's the way it should be. Now sometimes by personality and by the nature of the position, the other guy has to step up. But I think our best teams are when it comes from those rooms. And so I'm excited about both those guys and their leadership potential, because number one, they want to be leaders, but they also have the ability to articulate themselves in key situations, and they got the passion to stand up and do it.
What can you do with the staff, aside from injuries? I understand injuries are part of the game, you can't do a lot of stuff, to create some stability at the quarterback on the field, not just leadership skills, but actually, on the field still. What can you do with the staff?
Well, I think first of all, you got two younger quarterbacks, and our quarterback room there's no seniors in that room, So I think just having the ability to have a multi-year starter, is a great start. To be able to have guys that come in here and compete and they stay, And so to me, keeping them healthy is a big part of that, and that's part of our offensive line play, that's part of our receiver play, our running back play, and protecting them and all the things that they do. So I think it's a collective effort to me, and you got some young guys that are in our program that I hope will be with us for a long time, and that to me is the key, because I think you're going to always have some turnover, but you don't want it to be every year turnover. You want it to be, hey, this guy's going to be a multi-year starter. Obviously Dexter did some really good things the last part of the season and had as freak of injuries I've ever seen. And so with nobody touching him, everything just went apart. So, I feel like that he was a guy that I was excited about what he was showing he could do for the future, and that hopefully can return as well. But at the same time, I just think we want to make sure we do a great job of protecting those guys. Starts up front, starts to be able to run the football, and that'll take a lot of pressure off that quarterback.
Have you adjusted at all the way that you look at quarterbacks who kick or who transfer that world? Because you've gotten so many guys through things.
Yeah, I think.
Figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for that, I think it still comes down to, it's that position, other position that you want to make sure that it's a fit. It's a guy that understands what you're trying to do as a program and what you're trying to do schematically and doing a great job of getting the right ones in that spot. And so, obviously, with Taven coming in as a transfer in that room, the other two guys came to us, out of high school. And I feel like that, Dexter came to us out of high school, so he's our third guy in that room that's a high school guy. And so I just feel like that you're trying to develop that stability, but if you have to insert a guy that's older at that position or in position, you got to make sure they fit with you, because that person above all has to be a great locker room and culture fit for you.
With quarterback being up in the air, how important will it be to establish the running game for you guys?
Oh, I think it's huge, and I think that takes some stress off that position without question. So it's been an emphasis, without a doubt, getting Matt Bedford back is a big part of that. I'm excited about him being back. He's 100% right now and ready to go, and he's worked extremely hard this offseason. So just trying to, it doesn't just affect that position, it affects our defense, it affects our whole team, so I know that's a huge priority, and that's what we're putting a lot of emphasis on, and Coach Bostad's going to be a big part of that.
Do you feel like the Wild West aspect of NIL is like leveled off at all, and you're starting to kind of feel your way through it, and how to best to operate?
I think the Wild West part in regards to what's going on around us, no, that's getting even crazier by the day. But how you feel about it and how you kind of manage it, yeah, that's gotten better, and you kind of decide, okay, I'm going to focus on this, I'm not going to focus on this, and we have had some growth in that area, which has been very important, but we got to continue that growth. We got to continue to move forward with that as a program. And so, but I think, it's like anything else, I think you kind of get used to, I'm going to put my energy into this, I'm not going to get all worked up about this, and so, but at the same time, you're now talking about a variable that affects the roster. Like as I explained this in the past, you can have different budgets, and that affects the size of your stadium, or maybe how big your press box looks, or how big your weight room is, or how big your locker room is, or all the little fancy things you have in there. Well, now you're talking about resources that go to the actual players themselves and the quality of the players themselves. And to me, that's why the NFL puts all their money into paying their players and not worrying about having some fancy facility to come. It's going to be nice, but it's not going to be anything over the top. Why? Because, hey, let's use this money to get the best players. And so there's a lot of places that are using that money, through their collectives to be able to pay those players. So that's where it's become really, really out of control, and that's the part that it's got to get addressed, and I know everybody knows that. We just got to find somebody that has a great plan, and they can have the ability to get that plan implemented and get some positive change.
Are you actually
plans that have been put together by legislators in the last couple of weeks, whether it's the first one or the second one that Tuberville was involved with, or Senator Tuberville, I guess? What's your opinion on what they've communicated or have written in some of these bills?
I haven't sat down and totally studied them all. I've kind of seen, I read the articles as they come out and try to get a feel for it as best I can. Obviously, I have no control of any of that, but I do feel like that I am strongly in favor of this. That whatever we do, we still have to understand, why we're doing what we're doing. I'm an educator. I've spent a lot of time as a high school teacher and coach. Educational leadership was my master's, and I got my principal's license, and I believe in the value of education. And if we lose sight of that with what we're doing, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing for our players. When I go through and you look at the numbers of how many guys actually make a living in the NFL, it's a very, very, very small percentage. And so these guys are coming here to get their education, and the vast majority are never going to play a snap past playing college football. So if we're doing things that are encouraging them to lessen their chance of getting a college degree, we're not doing things the right way, in my opinion. So I don't want to get away from that. And so that's the tough piece with all this. But at the same time, I'm excited about the fact that players have the opportunity to earn, money through NIL. If it's done the right way, it's going to be an amazing thing, And so, I just see this thing as a revenue sharing direction we have to go. How that looks, how that works We gotta have people that are in bigger positions than I am to figure that out. But I know they're trying to do that. I think the NCAA needs to take charge of this. I think we as coaches need to take charge of this within our conferences, our commissioners, and be able to go and get together and decide what's best for college football in our future. But I want to protect the educational piece of this, which is why we're here, and I want to make sure we have NFL has done a pretty good job of figuring some things out. The salary cap works, okay? We have to have some way of being able to cap these opportunities, because to me, now you're still going to have an unlimited. If a young man has, and this is part of the balancing part of this, how do you control or how do you limit the NIL piece, from a true NIL piece where because of my name and my image and my likeness or my reputation, I'm able to cash in on that whole piece.